everyone, let's talk about charcoal and specifically the additive and subtractive method with charcoal. The additive and subtractive method is just a method of drawing in which you tone your paper gray. So you can see this whole paper is gray with charcoal. And you use an eraser to erase out highlights and just the darker charcoal to shade in areas. So you're adding charcoal to the gray paper for your shaded areas, and you're taking away charcoal or subtracting for the highlighted areas. This is a really great method for those of you that really want to learn how to draw realistically. This is a very traditional first step in learning how to draw realistically. What I like to do is use a handout. So if you are planning on doing this charcoal method, you have to use this handout. I have multiple copies of this handout, just with the charcoal materials in the drawing cabinet. And this is just a bunch of basic shapes or forms and really strong lighting, so you can see where the highlighted areas are and where the shaded areas are. It just makes it a lot easier when you're drawing if you have strong lighting like this to see where you need to add highlights and shading. This is just an example. It's unfinished, but just to show you a couple examples of what just the basic shapes look like. And then here is using the same method but doing a drawing, and this is just a drawing of a hippo. Here's another example of an unfinished example, but it's a dinosaur, but you can see where the highlights and the dark areas are. In the drawing cabinet, you are going to find all the charcoal materials. In here, you're going to find vine charcoal, and you see it's labeled vine. You're going to find your sandpaper pad. This is for making rubbing the vine charcoal on the sandpaper to make kind of a dust that you rub into the paper. And then in here is compressed charcoal. This is really, really dark charcoal. It's really hard to erase, and you can use that at the end for your darkest areas. You also find these cool charcoal pencils. This is good for details. Okay, to get started, you're going to need to get an empty container. They're right next to the charcoal materials in the cabinet. You will need to take a blending stump from the drawing materials and just make sure you put it back with the drawing pencils and in the drawing box with the different types of drawing pencils. This is a sandpaper pad. I have here a piece of compressed charcoal, and you can see here these are the gum erasers. These are just for using with charcoal. Now once you take it out of the packaging, it just looks like this, kind of like a piece of gum. All right, now let's get started. I'm just going to use the back of this paper. This is actually a special kind of paper. It's called charcoal paper, and if you look in the area where all the paper is kept, you are going to find that there is one drawer right at the bottom that says charcoal paper and pastel paper, and that's where it's kept. You can use a sandpaper pad to kind of make a little bit of this dust, and let's go ahead and rub this in. You don't want to make too much and get the paper too dark. You're just kind of looking for that middle gray. So this is kind of pretty good. I'm going to keep rubbing it in. Don't forget your edges. This is a messy process, so you will need to sponge your table when you are done. Okay, that's probably pretty good. I think we're just going to go with it. Okay, so I used a paper towel to just rub it in. Now I'm going to look at my handout for my sketch. My goal is to try to draw all of these forms fairly realistically. So I'm going to start on the left side and just work my way over. Starting with the triangle shape. The sphere. When I do my circle, I'm really loose. I kind of go around a few times before I commit to a circle. Now I'm doing the rectangular prism in the back. The cool thing about vine charcoal is if you mess up, you just use a paper towel to rub it out. No big deal. I'm going to bring this about here. So I am super loose with my drawing. Remember in the drawing boot camp? those of you that did it, my 8th graders. I talk a lot about holding your pencil kind of in the middle and being really loose with it. So you want to be kind of messy and loose in the beginning just to get a pretty good idea of where everything is. And for me, what I do, I start with my first shape here, and then I really use that to kind of measure where everything else is, meaning, okay, my sphere is about halfway up my triangle, and then my rectangle is behind that and just a little bit above, and then my cylinder is a little bit below my sphere. Okay, if I made a line. Now, I would like to draw my shadows in. I see a nice shadow in here, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that. And now I'm going to start doing some shading. So anywhere I see kind of a dark area, I'm going to go ahead and shade it in. I see some dark shadow here. Usually shadows are the darkest. Be careful with your fingertips. I hold my paper pretty gently and delicately on the edge because I really don't want it to smudge or rub off any of that charcoal. When I'm shading this, I'm kind of going in a nice circle here. Not a circle, but a curved line because it's circular. Okay, I find this area here on my rectangular prisms dark. Kind of a little bit darker here. There's a tiny sliver of that showing. Okay, just a little bit of the triangle showing there, the side of the triangle. My sphere is also pretty dark. Not as dark as the shadow, but I can shade some of it. Maybe over here. Okay, I'm just going to draw where the table is. It's a little higher up. Okay, and the background is really, really dark, actually. All right. Now I'm ready for my blending stump. I'm going to use this to kind of blend some of the charcoal marks so they don't look like just lines. And now this is the most fun, is the gum eraser, is for the highlighted areas. So you can stretch your gum eraser to get it nice and clean. You can even make a little point. I like to make a point and kind of put it on my finger so I can pull out the nice highlights. But it does get dirty pretty quickly. So then you have to do it again. You can reuse these. So just because they get dirty, you can probably get them dirty quite a few times before you decide to throw it away. Okay, so that's pretty extreme, that highlight. So I am going to go over with my blending stump, kind of work on that. Okay. There are some other areas here that are highlighted. I'm not going to spend the whole video showing you how to do this part for the sake of time. I just wanted you to get an idea of how to do this. Now, the last thing I haven't shown you is the compressed charcoal. This is something you want to save to the end because it is really, really dark. So I would say at the very, very end when you're ready for it, and I wouldn't try to blend it or anything, you can get in your really, really darkest areas. So maybe some in the shading, the shadow area here, and then of course your background. Okay. If it gets kind of dusty, I really don't think it's a great idea to dump it on the table. You can walk over to the trash can and throw any of the like kind of charcoal dust if it's getting too messy on your paper. Please don't blow it on the table and on your other, other students' artwork that are sitting next to you. All right, I'm going to show you guys the second half of the video in another video where you will see how to do an actual animal. All right, good luck.